Okay, Eva, you are spotlighted, and now I am going to add my spotlight. Hello, everybody. Okay, welcome to our Her Story, our monthly interesting biographical recitation and sharing of really amazing women that we have connections to. I'm very proud, again, from the Vienna office, the Vienna UN office, to introduce to you Eva Gyane, a dear colleague of mine. I first met her through Toastmasters at the Vienna International Center when I was working at the UN in Vienna. And she was an active Toastmaster and former president of the Toastmasters Club. I followed in her footsteps there. And she is a member of Women in Nuclear. And I also joined Women in Nuclear. And Eva has an amazing story, and she can share a little bit of it in the short time we have given her tonight. And I'm very happy and proud to welcome Eva Gyane, who will tell us her story. Eva, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Eva. As Lily said, we have known each other for a couple of years, and we ran into each other about 2 months ago. And she said, "Eva, do you want to give us a presentation about your life?" So I thought, okay, why not? So here I am. I'm going to talk to you about my life story very briefly. I try to keep the presentation short, but I can expand on certain topics if you wish me to do so. So, this is me. I am currently the leader of WiN for Peace, a group of experts within the WiN Global system. And I'm also the WiN Global Technical Leader in charge of all those other groups and their activities, etc. So I need to figure out how this works. Okay. So here is me. Who am I? I was born in a country that no more exists, in Czechoslovakia, when it was still part of the Eastern Bloc under Soviet influence. My father was a real Slovak, whereas my mother was Slovak on the paper, but actually she was of Austrian origin. Her mother could only speak German, and she lived with us after the death of my grandfather. So I grew up with two languages, with German and with Slovak. When I was born, there was still the Iron Curtain between Bratislava and Vienna, not like now where it takes you 45 minutes to go from one city to the other. There was this big Iron Curtain in between, and it was really difficult to cross that Iron Curtain. And somehow we were really lucky because we sometimes visited our relatives in Austria, and we asked for a visa. My mother asked for a visa for herself and the two children in her passport. And my father at a different time asked for a visa for himself to go to Austria. And so when I was, it was the time before the internet, of course, and apparently they didn't do any checks, but they gave the four of us the visa to go to Austria. So on my father's birthday in July of 1964, when I was 8 years old, we sat in the train, my mother and my brother and me at the front, and my father somewhere in the back. And we crossed the border. And when we got to the other side, my father came to us and he said, "Children, look back one more time, because who knows whether you will see that country ever again." So we landed in Vienna. My mother didn't want to go any further because she left her mother behind in Bratislava. And we needed to start again from scratch. It was very difficult at the beginning. We were very poor. We stayed with some relatives over the summer. And then in September, my brother and I, we started school. Uh, in German. I mean, we could speak German with a Burgenland accent, but we had no idea how to write German. So it was very challenging. Um, and it took some time to learn how to write in German, which is not so easy. Then in 1970, first when after fleeing from Czechoslovakia, the Czechoslovaks withdrew our nationality and we only got it back. We got the Austrian nationality in 1970, which then allowed us to feel like Austrians and to travel around as well. I went to school in Austria. I did 2 years of primary school. The first year, half year was in a school where the teacher was not very nice. I was always a very good student in Czechoslovakia, but here, as I said, I couldn't write in German and the teacher was not very welcoming. But fortunately, we then moved to our own apartment in February 65, and my teacher, the new teacher, was really very nice and supportive, and my grades also improved significantly under her leadership. I then did the Austrian gymnasium in the 10th district, and after that I did the European Secretarial Academy. The reason was because I had a boyfriend who we wanted to get married, and I had always been interested in languages, so I was looking for something really quick with languages, and that was this course which lasted 2 years and which had English, French, and Spanish as languages. Later on, I also did a master in business administration from the Vienna University of Economics. And last not least, a master of science in nuclear science and technology from Manchester University. I will tell you about the reason later on. And of course, I've done many different training courses. I believe in lifelong learning. And I also love languages. I've learned about 12 languages in my life, out of which I speak 6 fluently, I can say. So my family, I fell in love with this guy. After that first relationship broke up, I fell in love with this Nigerian Ghanaian called Bernard. We met in 1977 in a Viennese discotheque and got married then 5 years later. We have 3 children together. Our first son was born in 82. Our daughter followed in 85, and we had the second son in 1989. Unfortunately, my husband passed away 7 years ago, so now I'm a widow, and we have 5 grandchildren. And my grandchildren are all shades from blonde with green eyes to black with brown eyes. Of course, we had this interracial life, which was not always easy, especially in Vienna of the 1970s and 1980s and 90s. I think it has become easier now, but in those days there were hardly any blacks in Vienna, and some people also didn't like to see a white lady together with a black guy. So anyway, in the meantime, things have improved, and we always stood together, and we also valued our family and our children, which was very important for our children too, because they also faced some discrimination. I also love dogs. So in my life, I've had 3 dogs. My parents never allowed me to have a dog, and I insisted. And the only thing I was allowed to have were some hamsters and some budgies. That was and one turtle, but never a dog. So when my daughter was 8, she said, "I want a dog." So we went to get our first dog, Missy. And here you see me doing agility with her. So that's a dog sport similar to horse jumping, but with dogs. And we even achieved Austrian championships, I think in 1997, 78, 98, I don't remember anymore. After Missy, we had Becky, who was a very nice German Shepherd mix. She was a therapy dog because my youngest son is a psychologist and psychotherapist, and she accompanied him to patients. But unfortunately, she passed away in 2023. And now we have Chico, who is 3 years old, whom I got from a friend of mine. He was born in 22. My career at the IAEA. So I got my first job at the IAEA in 1976 in the isotope hydrology section, and I worked there for 2 years. And that was still in the old IAEA headquarters on the Kärntnerring. That's me on the left-hand side and a friend of mine on the right-hand side. Um, After 2 years, I wanted to go abroad and I accepted a job at the Austrian embassy in Santiago de Chile, where I was for 2 years. And if you see this overlap with the relationship with my husband, the reason why I wanted to leave Austria was because after we met, I didn't take him seriously, and I just wanted to go abroad and practice my Spanish. But when I came back, then our relationship got really intense, and that's when we stayed together. Um, I then had an uninterrupted. I also had some short-time jobs at the IAEA, but I got a permanent job in 1986 as a subject matter specialist in the Department of Nuclear Energy. That section was closed in 98, so we had to look for new jobs, and I got this job in the IAEA Department of Safeguards as a safeguards information analyst. That because of my language skills and also my computer skills, because that was the time when the IAEA was starting to look at the states at open source information in states under safeguards, and so they could make use of my skills. And later on, I became a nuclear safeguards inspector. So how did I become a nuclear safeguards inspector? So as I said, I started working at the Department of Safeguards as an information analyst, and this really got me interested in the work of a nuclear safeguards inspector. Only they said, oh, she only has an MBA, so she has no technical background. So I said, I heard that several times until one day I said, okay, then I need to do something against it. And I went back to university. I did a bachelor in physics and chemistry from the Open University and a master in science, in nuclear science and technology in Manchester University, beside a full-time job and 3 kids. So all my spare time went for studies, and it took me, I think, altogether 5 or 6 years until I completed all my studies. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody again, and I don't know how I did it, and I wouldn't like to do it again. It was really an intensive time in my life, but I managed. So I started as an IAEA nuclear safeguards inspector on the 1st of April of 2006. It was not an April Fool's joke. It was really the day I started. And my section was SGOB2. You know, in the Department of Safeguards, you have 3 divisions. You have OA, OB, and OC. And the OB2 at that time was responsible first for Africa and the Middle East. But then the problems with Iran started in the early 2000s. So Africa and the Middle East became the Middle East. And again, a few years later, it became the Iran Task Force. And I was the country officer for Iran in that Iran Task Force from 2011 until I left in 2016. And after the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, or the so-called nuclear deal, entered into force in January 2016, the Iran Task Force became a division within the Safeguards Department called Safeguards Verification Office for Iran. At the time I became a safeguards inspector, my 3 children were old enough. So my youngest son was, how old was he? 17. The others were already studying. So it was easier to become an inspector, and I had a lot of family support, in particular from my mother and my husband. Let's look at some of the challenges of an IAEA nuclear safeguards inspector. So inspectors travel extensively between 100 and 140 days per year, and sometimes for 2 to 3 weeks per trip. And often those trips come at very short notice, so this requires a lot of planning and being flexible and having some provisions when you are not around. Like for my kids, I had my husband and my mother, and for the dog, I had a dog sitter. So I always had to be very well organized for that. Of course, sometimes there are flight delays, or you arrive at the place, but your equipment hasn't arrived, which means that the inspection activities are delayed. This happened to us on a trip to Congo one time, where we arrived on an Air France flight, but the equipment didn't come. So, and there were only 2 or 3 flights a week, so we had to wait like for 3 more days until we got our equipment. You are also away from the family. So as I mentioned, the good support network at home, and of course you also need to stay in communication, especially if you have young kids. This is easier now with the new tools that are available, but in those days you didn't have things like Skype and WhatsApp call. So basically it was emails or SMSs, I don't remember. Yeah, the job can also be rather stressful because a lot of people watch you all the time, whether it's the operators or the state authorities or the state security. Or in Iran, for example, they always used to film all our activities. So I have kilometers of film somewhere in Iran showing me climbing up ladders and doing all kinds of things. Also, in the case of Iran, for example, we had to report to headquarters on the after we concluded the activities. So when you got back to the hotel, you had to sit down and draft a note to file and send it back to the office on that same day. Also, the work is quite demanding, and ideally you should not make any mistakes because that might be very, how should I say, very serious, and it might also be from a diplomatic point of view. It might sometimes bring problems. So you should really try to avoid any mistakes. Also, there's a lot of paperwork involved, both before, during, and after inspections. Before, you need to prepare the paperwork. During the inspections, you use the paperwork, and after the inspections, you put everything into electronic files and notes to files and inspection reports, etc. So that's you have to be very precise and make sure you didn't forget anything, any of the activities, etc. The job can also be physically demanding because you need to walk around facilities, you need to climb stairs, you need to climb up ladders to service IAEA equipment, etc., etc. So you should be rather fit. And of course, the working environment can be harsh. For example, you have to wear all your PPE, and at the same time, you have to take the radiation readings. Or in Iran, I had to wear trousers, long sleeves, and a hijab to work. So I remember one day it had like 52 degrees, and I had to take a note of something. And as I leaned forward, the sweat came into my eyes, and I could not see anything anymore. So that can be rather challenging. But of course, there are also some nice sides about being a safeguards inspector. So during my job, I visited more than 20 different countries, whether it was for inspections, for training as or as an instructor, because I also instructed at the IAEA training courses. And also this work allowed me to inspect facilities of the entire nuclear fuel cycle, from mining and milling, conversion, enrichment reactors, research reactors, reprocessing. So it was quite a steep learning curve. And of course, you get to go to locations that few people get to see, like all those tunnels and things which are off off-road and which nobody gets to see. Sometimes you need to work alone, so you really need to be well prepared for that so that you don't forget anything. And I've also worked with some great inspection teams, with some of which I'm still in touch. Also, my work exposed me to many different cultures. So I spent, as I was intrinsically involved in the Iran task force, I spent 1.5 years of my life in Iran on about 50 inspection trips, and it was really nice to observe the culture there. People are very friendly and very hospitable. The food is excellent. I can cook some Iranian food as well, like fesenjan, for example, for those of you who know what that is. Since I was the country officer, I could also use my analytical and writing skills, which I had previously acquired when I was a safeguards information analyst. So that also was very useful for me. And most importantly, as an IAEA safeguards inspector, you have this feeling that you are directly contributing towards world peace. And I think there are not many jobs where you can say that. So here are some pictures. The inspector's work can be tough. This was actually the photo of my first inspection in Iran, fully dressed, but it could also be fun. I was also the country officer for Egypt for several years, so I traveled to Egypt like 4 to 6 times a year, and I took many of my fellow inspectors to the pyramids in Giza because they all wanted to see the pyramids, so I was there like 20 times. I left the IAEA at the end of 2016 because I got a job offer to work for the Federal Authority for Nuclear Regulation, FANR, in the UAE. That's the nuclear regulator, the UAE's nuclear regulator. They offered me a position as a senior nuclear export control specialist. And this was a very nice experience for me. It involved work both at the office and on inspections. So I don't know how familiar you are with the nuclear industry, but this was the time when the UAE was building the Baraka nuclear power plant, 4 units. So some of the units were under construction, some were under commissioning, and some were operational already. So we we were in charge of inspecting the equipment that they had received from Korea and the US for the reactors. And we also conducted inspections to companies that were transferring controlled items. I could talk a lot about that now, but there are some items that cannot just be exported freely and imported freely, but they are subject to controls if they are either nuclear related or nuclear related dual use, as per the Nuclear Suppliers Group guidelines. So this was our duty also to monitor those companies because there's a lot of transactions in the UAE, especially in Dubai. There are about 2 million transactions every day with many different countries, including some that are on sanctions lists, etc. And one thing I really enjoyed was also to train and mentor young Emirati colleagues and also to explain to them what the safeguard system is, etc. So on the left photo, you see me on my first inspection to Baraka. That was actually the hotel where we were staying. As you can see, it's a very nice hotel. And on the right-hand side is my farewell party in March 2023. So I had some very nice colleagues, and I'm still in touch with some of them. And I go to Abu Dhabi about twice a year. So let me talk a little bit about who is WiN Global and what was my role in WiN IAEA. So if you look at the website of WiN Global, you will see that it's a non-profit organization of women who work professionally in various areas of nuclear energy and radiation applications. The organization is legally registered in Austria as a Verein, as an association under Austrian association law. We currently have about 35,000 members in about 60 chapters in more than 145 countries. I joined WiN Global in 2006, and I was the WiN IAEA President from 2009 till 2016. That was a time when I started, when the chapter was kind of dormant, and together with some other people, we revived the chapter, and we also conducted the annual WiN Global Conference in 2015, in August 2015, where I think Lily also was a member of our organizing committee. I was also a WiN Global executive. I was the treasurer until last year and a member of the steering committee. And in 2019, I received the WiN Global Honorary Award. So in summary, I can say that WiN Global is a wonderful network, and you have a lot of friends around the world. So wherever you go, if there's a chapter, you contact the chapter and you meet up with the ladies from that chapter. In 2023, I founded and became the leader of WiN for Peace. That is one of the expert groups within WiN Global. And our subject areas are nuclear non-proliferation, safeguards, export controls, and disarmament. I founded this group shortly after the outbreak of the Ukrainian war because I thought we need more women to work in peace, for peace, and in nuclear non-proliferation, and they need to be educated what this is all about. So the objective is to spread knowledge of these subject areas with the result of bringing more women into the peace and disarmament process, because we all need to work together to make this world a more peaceful place for all. And end of last year, I became the WiN Global Technical Leader. So I'm leading all the expert groups within WiN Global, currently 10 of them, and coordinating their activities. Last not least, I would like to close my presentation on my visit to Japan last week. So I returned from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where I attended the ceremonies to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the bombing of the two cities. It was my third visit to Hiroshima and my first visit to Nagasaki. And every time I went to Hiroshima, I visited the Peace Museum and saw the atrocities conducted, the effects of those bombs on the ordinary people, men, women, children, indiscriminate effects. I also went to, that's me on the left-hand side in front of the only building that was kept from in Hiroshima. That was the industry building built by a Czech company as a memory of the bomb. That was ground zero. Now it's a beautiful park around there and everything, but yeah. In the middle at the bottom, you see a tricycle of a small boy who died in the bombing in Hiroshima, and his father buried him together with his tricycle so that he could ride the tricycle wherever he was. But then a few years later, he decided to dig out the bicycle and to donate it to the Peace Museum in Hiroshima. On the right-hand side, I took that photo in the museum in Nagasaki, which speaks for itself. And the right-hand side is also, that was the ground level in Nagasaki. And on the middle, the picture in the middle is from one of the events that I attended in Nagasaki. It was a huge peace conference, and you can see there were some hibakusha. There were peace activists from around the world and praying and singing and propagating nuclear disarmament and no more nuclear weapons. Okay, I think I'm 2 minutes early. That's good. So this brings me to the end of my presentation, and if you want me to expand on anything, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. This is such an amazing story. Do you think of stopping when you talk about everything you're still doing? When I think of everything you did in the past and now what you are still doing with the as a technical leader of the 10 IAEA of the 10 WiN global groups, how do you see the future for yourself?
Well, I call myself semi-retired. So one of the semis is my family. I help my family with my children with the grandchildren, especially with the little ones, like my 2-year-old youngest grandson. So I have him about 3 times a week. That's one part of it. The other part is WiN Global. I still have a lot in here, and I don't want it to go to waste. And there are a lot of young people who can learn from me. So this is my objective that I mean, I could stop everything, but I don't really want to do that. I have a lot of mentees, a lot of people who ask me for advice. So that's me.
Amazing, amazing, wonderful. There's a question from Anne Schaffner. How did the national nuclear authorities relate to you? Can you tell us some of your experiences, especially in Iran?
Okay, so in case you don't know what are national authorities, uh, when a state signs the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, under Article 3, it says that they have to conclude a safeguards agreement with the IAEA, which means that they have to place all nuclear material on their territories under IAEA safeguards. So they have to declare what they have to the IAEA, and the IAEA then inspects and verifies and does all kinds of other safeguards measures. So the counterpart is the national regulator. So each country needs to have a national authority that is in charge of implementing safeguards to support the IAEA, but also to keep accounts. Each facility has the nuclear material. There needs to be a nuclear material accounting system in place, and they have to report to the IAEA what they have. So national regulators are always present, mostly, unless you go on an inspection alone or it's a really small inspection. But usually, state authorities staff accompanies IAEA inspectors. And of course, it's a system based on cooperation. So usually, you try to cooperate. Sometimes you may want to do something where the state authority does not agree, so you have to negotiate. You have to have good diplomatic and negotiation skills. And if there are really problems, then you just try to freeze the situation and you report to headquarters and you get instructions. And if it's something persistent, it goes to a higher level. But usually, as an inspector, you are the lowest chain in of command, and you somehow need to fulfill your job duties and try to do it together in cooperation with the state authority and with the operator.
I think you told me you were also in North Korea as an inspector. Is that correct?
Actually, on I was scheduled to go in April 2009. That was the last trip, and the flight had already been booked and everything. But then North Korea withdrew from the NPT, and that was it. They threw us out. So I actually never went. No,
Oh, okay.
but I've been to many other countries. So especially in Africa, Middle East, and North America. That's what OB2 was responsible for, or OB in general.
So Mitty has suggested if you have any other questions, feel free to open your microphone and ask yourselves, dear sisters. So many amazing parallels with what Women in Nuclear stands for. Of course, I guess that's why I joined. But so many things that you've talked about, family values and working for peace. The Women's Federation is focusing on these areas, and now in our NGO work, in our conferences at the Vienna International Center, we are very active there. So I'm so happy to introduce you to all of our sisters here. Britta, please go ahead.
I can only say, wow, what a presentation. And I feel so happy that we have women like you in that kind of powerful positions. But I get so curious because you have such a broad interest in human endeavor. And you were actually linguistic at first, kind of. You were interested in the languages. And then somehow you got into the physics and the nuclear physics and all that. And so where did that come from? Really?
Well, quite honest, it was not easy. You know, maybe because I grew up with two languages that somehow facilitated me learning other languages. And, you know, at the Vienna International Center, they have these language classes during lunchtime. So my objective was to get the UN proficiency in all UN languages, except Chinese, because I don't like the singing. When you sing something wrongly, it has a different meaning. So I have English proficiency in English, French, Spanish, Russian. I didn't get it in Arabic, so in 4 of the 5. Uh, I Mathematics for me, I was always struggling. And my husband was a mathematician and statistician, and he always supported me, even when I was at the Economic University of Vienna. And you know, physics is a lot of maths, so I was really struggling. I had to do some revision of mathematics before I could study the physics. My husband helped me a lot. It was not easy, especially the Open University is online. So it was actually not online like now, but you got the papers. So you got the books which you had to study, and then you got these what were they called? Something assignments, and you had to figure out by yourself how to solve those assignments. There was nobody you could ask or anything, you know. So it was not easy. It was not easy at all. But I'm happy I managed.
But you still had this interest for physics and for math
Of
from the
course,
beginning.
because it's the basis of nuclear physics, you
Right.
know.
Yeah. But also, you know what's really impressive, because it's quite rare that that kind of ambition that you had and the kind of drive and confidence that you were able to keep your family together and
Yeah.
keep your relationship with your husband. I mean, that is really amazing, you know. So that's so beautiful too, I felt. So,
Thank you. Maybe it was because of my mom, because I remember when I was young, my mom always used to invite us on Sundays for lunch. And I'm doing the same with my children. So every Sunday we meet for lunch when I'm around, and that keeps us together. I think it's really important. And we all have, that's why we also have a very good relationship, all of us.
thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, may I ask something?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm really impressed by the presentation and what you did and how logical it was. My name is Letizia. Huh? I have been in another story in another time. So, but when I heard the nuclear physics, oh, I had to listen. And my question is political, really. You speak also very many languages, so you're absolutely in a position to be a peacemaker and knowing where the real risks are, not just being gentle at home, though you do that well too, but also knowing where the big dangers are for all of us. At the moment, we need nuclear energy a lot also just for our regular peaceful energy. How is it nowadays to see the progress of or the reintroduction of nuclear energy for safe, for peaceful purposes? And how to stay clear or control that it's not sneaked into the military purposes? Is there, you know, can you see a specific role there, or did you, or from your work you have a certain idea about the best policy for that? That's really something that interests me a lot. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Letizia. Well, this is actually the role of the IAEA safeguard system.
Ah,
So there are 200 countries in the world.
yes.
109, and let's say there are 200, maybe it's two more or five less. I don't know the exact number. Let's suppose it's 200. Out of those 200 countries, 196 have signed the NPT and have a safeguards agreement. Except for, I think, one of the new countries, South Sudan, is missing, and some of these smaller countries where they have not done that yet. So, except for India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea. So those 4 countries are outside the NPT. But all other countries are within the NPT, whether it's nuclear weapon states or non-nuclear weapon states. Under the NPT, you have 5 recognized nuclear weapon states: US, France, China, Great Britain, and Russia. And all the other states are non-nuclear weapon states. So all the non-nuclear weapon states are obliged to conclude safeguards agreements with the IAEA and to be subject to inspections. The nuclear weapon states also voluntarily are subject to safeguards. They have so-called voluntary safeguards agreements. So they offer some facilities for the IAEA for inspections. And it's just those 4 states that remain outside the NPT.
But they're the most dangerous.
Yes. And also there is a provision in the NPT Article 6 on disarmament. So those 5 states under the nuclear weapon states that are recognized under the NPT, they have to disarm eventually, but this has not happened. On the contrary, nowadays you can see that they are improving their arsenals, expanding their arsenals, putting billions into it. So next year there will be the NPT review conference, and I think there will be a lot of controversy because I think I don't know whether you have heard about the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, the TPNW, which is a relatively new treaty which was went into force, I think, in 2021, which is considered like complementary to this Article 6 of the NPT. So it prohibits the possession, production, use of nuclear weapons. So about 100 countries have signed up to it, but all the major countries haven't. And also those that are under a nuclear umbrella haven't. For example, even Japan hasn't signed up to the TPNW. And when I was in Hiroshima 2 years ago, they were collecting signatures for Japan to join the TPNW. They were doing the same now. But of course, Japan is under the nuclear umbrella of the United States because of North Korea, which is just across the strait.
Yeah.
So quite honest, we are living at times that are not peaceful and with a lot of crazy things going on. And really, I don't know where we are going. But the IAEA has done a great job on safeguarding the nuclear energy and ensuring that it's indeed only used for peaceful purposes. One exception, of course, is North Korea, which withdrew because they always had the intention of building nuclear weapons. And also from a diplomatic point of view, a lot of mistakes were made, which led to the current situation. And India, Pakistan, and Israel never joined the NPT. So they had also, there's the Kashmir conflict. India started with a peaceful nuclear explosion in 1974. Then Pakistan acquired the blueprints for uranium enrichment, which was the basis for a HEU, highly enriched uranium-based bomb. And in 1978, both of them, first India conducted a test and shortly afterwards Pakistan, so they became nuclear weapon states. And Israel is very opaque about what it has. And there are some open source reports on what they had. There was also this defector who said that they have nuclear weapons, but they never admitted to it. So it's not easy. I think on the one hand, we have these emerging technologies which may help the IAEA because, of course, the IAEA's resources are limited. So they will need a lot of new resources, especially when they produce reactors that can be moved around, or
Ah,
that will require some new technologies to be employed, whether it's through satellite surveillance, or I don't know what will be the safeguards measures. But if the IAEA is giving me enough money, I think they can do it. And there are people
is there a
working on.
chance that you would become a member of the AIEA or women like you?
No, I'm too old.
It's true?
Yeah, I think the limit is, what is the limit, Lily? 65. You have to retire at 65, and then I think you can be a consultant up to 70. So
Yeah.
I'll be 70 in February.
You can be at home, work from home consultant until 75, I think. Yeah.
Really?
I
Okay.
think the consultancy was 70 as a consultant traveling around, like for the meetings and things. But but after 70, you can't travel anymore. Yeah.
It's okay. I don't need to go back to the IAEA.
No. Oh, well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? This is so,
Okay,
Yeah.
there's one. Oh, that was Letizia. Okay.
yeah.
I'd like to say something.
Mitty.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Eva. So moved by your story, actually. The whole, from the beginning to the end, it's an incredible, incredible journey.
Thank you, Mitty.
You face so much as a child, leaving your hometown with your parents, and then going to a marriage of interracial marriage and going through that persecution. Of those early years of not people understanding going beyond the race, and raising up such a wonderful family, and then going into a very, very important area. And as you says, there's not so many women in this area, and if women were there and the women's voices were able to have a space to say, that there is another way.
Yes.
Protection of nations, instead of just building more weapons, and thinking that's the way. I was just wanted to ask, since you're in Japan, about Sendai, because of the natural disaster, and when they have nuclear generators there, and how is that situation? Because are the inspectors still watching that? Because that's already, I think, over 10 years, or
You mean Fukushima?
is it Fukushima?
Fukushima. So I was in Fukushima twice, 2 years ago and 3 years ago. Unfortunately, that accident happened due to the tsunami. So they had 4 units on top of a hill and, close to the water. And there was a tsunami wall, but the wall was not high enough. So this was a huge earthquake, the biggest one ever, I think, which caused a huge tsunami, which destroyed a lot of buildings and roads and killed people through the tsunami. The problem with Fukushima was that they had the diesel generators in the basement. So that wall was not high enough, and the floods inundated the basement and the reactor, certain parts of the reactor. So the normal electricity was shut down, and the diesel generators could also not run because they were flooded. So this is what, they did put off the reactors, but the fuel still produces heat. So you need cooling for that. So you need the water, the water circulation, and this just was not possible. So I think 3 of the cores melted, and there was also a hydrogen explosion because when the fuel was exposed, there was some accumulation of hydrogen in the reactor halls, and there was no venting system. They could not open the vents because of the lack of electricity. So that's why this explosion happened. The situation now is that people are returning to their homes. On the reactor site, they have a lot of water that was contaminated for the cooling. So they are keeping that in huge tanks, and they are slowly releasing it into the sea. under IAEA monitoring. And so after treatment, of course, it's not the contaminated water, so it's just very slightly contaminated. They are gradually releasing that, and yeah, and one of the challenges is to remove the fuel debris from the melted cores. And when I was in Japan, I met actually a young Japanese whom I know from the World Nuclear University Summer Institute of 2 years ago, no, last year. And he's a young engineer who develops robotics to remove the fuel. So you can only go in with robots because it's still a highly radioactive environment. So it will take a while to decommission those reactors, but the Japanese are working on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched a documentary not long ago that even animals can roam there now. Animals
Well,
go.
even in Chernobyl, you have a huge wildlife, and they are doing quite well, those wild animals. You know, there's this strong radiation which occurs right after the event, but then the radiation, the advantage of radiation is that it has a half-life, so it reduces after some time, and the long-term radiation it's not so radioactive like the short-term radiation. So, for example, uranium has a very long half-life, and you find uranium all over the planet. People don't even know that it is, for example, in the sea or in the soil, etc., naturally occurring. So,
Wow, thank you so much. I'm so impressed, actually. I want to invite you more. We want to listen more from you because it's incredible. I think we've only touched the tip of the iceberg, actually, and the vast experience that you have and have broken many glass ceilings. Yeah, it's always a battle, isn't it?
but it's okay. It was a good experience. I really loved being in Abu Dhabi. It was a very nice life in the heat, very luxurious.
I did have one very kind of political, I don't know whether I should bring it on this platform, but recently was it Iraq or Iran that they found that they're building a nuclear weapons or
Right.
something.
Well, it was Iran. That's why the Israelis bombed Iran. But actually, it was not the way that they said.
Yes. So that was my question. If they could detect that Iran had this, how can we not detect that Israel, if they have weapons or not? Why is it this kind of discrepancy?
Oh, they're so sophisticated.
The reason is, under the NPT, a state can have a peaceful nuclear program. And it doesn't say that so Iran got this enrichment technology from a Pakistani guy called Abdul Qadir Khan, who gave them the blueprints. So they built their uranium enrichment facility. They were enriching uranium. Nobody wanted that, but the West could not stop it. That's why they had this JCPOA, which Mr. Trump exited. And that's when Iran started rescinding some of their obligations, and they started enrichment to higher and higher levels. And they had like 400 kilograms of uranium enriched up to 60%. You may not know this, but for the IAEA, anything that is above 20% is considered highly enriched uranium, and highly enriched uranium, the higher the enrichment is, the more usable it is for a nuclear weapon. So you had this 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium sitting in Iran, which had no civilian applications. And Iran was considered like a nuclear threshold state. It didn't mean that they had nuclear weapons, but if they wanted, they could, within a few days, they could enrich the 60% to 90%. It's just one step more in the enrichment process. And there were also indications that they were working on some of the other parts that you need for a nuclear weapon. And of course, also you need missiles. They have all that. So I don't think they had nuclear weapons, but it would have been very easy for them to build nuclear weapons. And the IAEA issued a Board of Governors report just before that war began. where they were said that they never got satisfactory answers to questions of long time ago, many years ago, where they found indications that Iran had some activities which they needed to have declared, but they didn't. And so there was this Board of Governors report, I think on the Friday, and on the Sunday, Israel started bombing Iran. And then Iran was claiming that it was because of the IAEA that they got bombed, which is kind of, far-fetched. But that's why they threw out, they stopped cooperation, or it has to go through the national security apparatus. I don't know what.
It's a sensitive one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a question too.
Miss Schaffner, once again. Oh, okay. Oh, you grew up in Pennsylvania. Okay, I was actually in 3 Mile Island a while ago. It was an unfortunate accident where I think they didn't know what they were doing. And they were mixed up some buttons, and at that time it was all analog systems, not digital systems like now. So fortunately, there was no release to the environment in the 3 Mile Island accident, but it is a story for itself. Yeah, I agree.
I was not there. I was living on vacation in England when it took place.
Okay.
And when I called, all my friends were very upset. And I called to my father and he said, "Why are you so upset? Everything is okay." But I think afterwards, after it happened, there were many, many, many cases in Middletown and along the Susquehanna of cases of leukemia and of cancer. And this is what my father then and my parents decided, no, this is not the right kind of nuclear or right kind of energy. But this whenever I say I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, people many times say, "Oh yes, 3 Mile Island."
Yes. But are you still living there now, or?
No, I've lived 37 years here. I live in Freiburg-im-Breisgau in Germany.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, Harrisburg everybody knows what is in Harrisburg. Most people.
Yeah.
Eva, we have filled a whole hour. We have reached our limit, and I'm so happy that Mitty agrees that we need to invite you again, that the content is very, very interesting. It's been really amazing, and I'm so grateful for all that you could share with us, and wish you all the best and good health and continued success in all of your endeavors. It's really amazing everything that you're doing, and perhaps more cooperation with our Women's Federation activities. As I know, Renata and some of us have also attended some of the Women in Nuclear events at the VIC. So I remember when you were president of the WiN IAEA and you suggested a cooperation with Women's Federation, which is probably the time when Renata came. And I'm so glad that we could host you for this HerStory event and look forward to remaining in touch with you. Thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation, Lily. And maybe we can have some cooperation with the WiN for Peace. Maybe you can become our supporter. It doesn't entail anything. It's just moral support. You don't need to pay anything, or it's no obligation. It's just support.
Yeah.
Because I think we need more to support each other more. And it really takes more women to make this world a more peaceful place. I strongly believe in that. So thank you for the good work you ladies are doing, and I will be happy for us to join forces.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice evening, all of you.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.